Mayor, why not just ask for the cash today instead of separating it from today and next week?
I wanted to make sure that administration had the opportunity to address any questions the council had today, particularly if they didn't have the answers handy before they asked for any money. It's been a while since council's been updated on this project, and the new members of council have never been updated on it. So I just thought, we're not in a huge rush. We are in a huge rush, but another week's not going to kill anybody. And that'll give them a good chance to make sure they answer all the questions and they come back with a very detailed budget request.
Would you be surprised if the $2 million wasn't afforded? Because if you say that the $2 million is not afforded, then they have to work with the 1.2. I mean,
yeah, I mean, my understanding from what we're hearing today is that without the additional funding, it'll be very, very hard to actually move forward. So council needs to determine if they're in for a bit more here. There's still off-ramps, right? There's still an opportunity to say no. And the first money that the Calgary Bid Exploration Committee spent was, I think, money very well spent, because that work helps us understand the state of our facilities. It helps us understand our readiness to host any big event, any big sporting event, I should say. So we really have to determine whether this next batch, which really is about setting up the bid committee, is something the council wants to do.
Our goalposts seem to have been moved by the IOC. Are you more optimistic that a bid would go forward?
I mean, the only thing that's really happened is that they've shortened the process a little bit. So we thought that we would have until about July to set up a bid committee, and then if we wanted to move forward and bid at that point. As it turns out, the bid books are now due, if I got my timing right, the bid books are now due January 2019. They take about a year to do. So we have to move a little more quickly than we thought we would if we want to move forward. That said, I have said many, many times, and I will say again, that it's council's choice, it's Calgary's choice. But if we choose to bid, we'll win. And so the question is it right for Calgary right now?
But the IOC providing more sort of commitments.
Oh, yes. Yes, so one thing that we've really heard from the International Olympic Committee is that they're interested in our candidature. That's a new word that I learned. But they're interested in our candidature, and they want to support us in putting the best bid possible forward. Again, we're doing this very differently than other cities have done, by having a public conversation, by really thinking through whether it's right for the city in this way. And the IOC has indicated that they're willing to be a good partner on this.
Are those the signs that, I guess you agree whether with Mr. Ripley in terms of that things are breaking Calgary's way? Do you see that? I do. And once again, I would say that it is a choice for Calgarians to make. But, you know, I've always thought that we had an incredibly strong opportunity, an incredibly strong candidature. There's that word again. I've always thought that we had an incredibly strong opportunity to win. And I continue to believe that. So we really have to make the decision on whether it's right for Calgary. If it's right for Calgary, then we will go all guns in. And I think that we will have an incredibly powerful bid, and I think we'll win. But do you share Councillor Farrell's concern that it might be just because we're the last ones standing, or the only ones that are interested?
No, I don't think that'll happen. There will certainly be other cities that will still be in there. There are other cities in there now. That said, her questions about risk, I think, are good ones. But what we really have to address is what's the risk of bidding other than the cost of the bid? You know, would we lose out on anything by pushing forward with a bid that would then be successful? I think that's a fair question, but I also think that the report answers that really well and says that the benefits outweigh the risks in this case.
Mr. Nenshi, can I ask you a question?
Oui.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez que l'administration municipale demande 2 millions de dollars supplémentaires seulement pour les travaux exploratoires?
C'est vraiment le coût de participer dans les Jeux. C'est vraiment ça. On a toujours connu qu'il y aura une possibilité qu'on a besoin de plus d'argent. Mais on a cru que peut-être ça serait en janvier ou février l'année prochaine. Et il faut faire la décision maintenant.
What do you think would be asked for, not asked, but the statement that $180,000 is needed to fix the fishing boat sculpture? Should that money be spent?
I think that we can probably all agree on one important principle of public art. It shouldn't hurt people. Now, I think that's pretty fair. We don't live in that kind of a dangerous world. I am looking forward to Councillor Chacal's motion arising, asking for a little bit more information on that particular project. I really don't want council to get involved in the vagaries of every single project. That one is a bit unique, and it's worth remembering that it was up for a long time, you know, I think well over a year before we realized that there were any problems with it when someone actually burns a hole through their jacket, which is not a good thing. So I'd like to see what options were considered. I also was wondering if there was an indoor option. I can think of a city facility that has high ceilings and concrete walls that could probably handle the weight of that particular object. So I just want to understand the conversation that was held. It's very clear that that spot in front of the Genesis Center is a spot designed for public art, and it does need public art. Whether spending that money on this particular piece so that it can be installed in that spot makes sense is something that I'd like to question a bit more.
And this custodian coordination has applied to have a number of places renamed, including Calgary. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, as we go through the action of reconciliation, and today we kick off Métis Awareness Week, you know, we will always have these kinds of conversations. A nation-to-nation relationship does not mean that one side gets everything it wants or the other one gets everything it wants. But I love this kind of thing because it opens up a thoughtful conversation for us in terms of how we truly recognize both the history and the future of the land that we share.
Mayor, I know, but I'll go ahead.
Well, should Calgary be renamed?
That's a tough one. I don't think so, but let's keep talking.
Mayor, just to go back to this for a second, I know you said before that if Calgary puts in a bid, you really think that we have a good chance of winning. But did you get the feeling from Mr. Ripley speaking when he was discussing the other cities that are currently involved in 26 that there was almost kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge that if Calgary bid, that according from the city's perspective that we probably win?
No, I didn't. You mean a wink, wink, nudge, nudge from the IOC?
And based on what Mr. Ripley was discussing.
No, I don't think anyone's in a position to make that statement. Let's remember that the IOC is based in Switzerland, that there has not been a Winter Games in Switzerland in a long time, in Europe in a long time, in the European time zones, and many of the fans of these sports are in Europe. So if Switzerland moves forward with a bid, or Stockholm comes back into the game, I think these will be very strong contenders. So I don't think the fix is in any way, but I continue to think that our story is so compelling that we would be able to prevail.
How concerned are you that city administration is doing all this work without a host city contract, which isn't coming apparently till July?
My original plan was that council would make a decision based on the outline of a host city contract. That was actually because I thought it would come shortly after Pyeongchang and that the timing would happen really well. And it's not going to happen. That said, we know the basic outlines of what a host city contract would look like. We have some understanding of what concessions the IOC has made for Los Angeles and Paris. And as I've said many, many times, the numbers have to work. If the numbers in the host city contract don't work, we stop. And if that means that council has spent a little more money before we stop, that is what it is.
One last question, then we got to go.
The IOC's commitment of I think $925 million US to the successful bid city. How does that impact the numbers that CBEC came back with?
That's actually, I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's really what we're crunching now to try and determine how that impacts particularly that $400 million operating deficit. I've said many times that if we're moving forward with an operating deficit, that's not on. But I do understand there are a number of strategies to close that gap, including that $900 million.
Thanks, everybody. We need to get going.
Bid, $25 to $30 million. What's your level of confidence that either the other orders of government would contribute?
I think at that point that we're moving forward with a formal bid, we would need a commitment from the other orders of government, both to the bid cost as a sign of good faith, as well as, of course, to the capital costs and the security costs of the game. So that's something that needs to happen relatively quickly. I should point out that bids in the past have been much higher than that. There are rumors that there are some cities that have spent upwards of $100 million just on the bid. And we are very much looking at a bid that, like the whole project, would be a frugal bid and a thoughtful bid. So, and I want to make sure that even $30 million isn't way too much. What can I do for you folks?
Speaking of which, council decided to not pay for some fancy landscaping. Why?
Well, what council did do is we had a lot of debate over stuff that wasn't actually before us. All administration wanted to know was, could we please continue on these two projects? And in fact, council added a third one and subtracted one when administration said we don't really need to continue on that project after all. So We will continue with public art procurement for the Anderson pedestrian bridge, as well as for the 5th Street underpass between downtown and the Beltline. And all other projects will be put on, all other procurement projects will be put on hold until we have our review of our public art policy back to us next year.
Do you agree with a couple of council members who seem to indicate there are problems inside the public art program in terms of left hand knowing what the right hand's doing?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I was happy to co-sponsor the notice of motion that we did at the end of the summer, because clearly the reforms that we made in 2014 have not taken the way that I thought they would, and it's a good opportunity for us to ask those questions again.
On the wishing well sculpture, is the motion arising from Jamal kind of like a nice compromise that they will get an update going forward on this particular piece?
See, every time you say wishing well, I think of a song that came out before you were born. Terrence Trent D'Arby, wonderful soul singer. I'll leave you to find it because I keep wanting to sing it every time you say it. The older people know. Anyway, and can you send her? Scott, would you mind sending her a link? Terrence Trent D'Arby, wishing well. You know, kiss and tell. Yeah, that's the one. Everybody knows. Yeah, everybody knows. No, actually, that is just an example of the area council member in the mayor's office kind of saying, help us understand how you got to where you're going, help us guide you if there's a better decision to be made here.
I'm the new kid on the block.
Hi, who are you?
I'm Lauren. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So just for a bigger picture here, in terms of wanting to rein in these art projects, we still have the ones go ahead that are in a phase that need to go ahead. Just talk about the importance of the fiscal responsibility as a whole.
Well, you know, this question of fiscal responsibility is a very odd one. One of my councillors today said, well, why would we want to spend that money now when people are unemployed? And the answer is because that gives people jobs when they're unemployed. And actually you want to do it now rather than at a point in the future where it'll be much more expensive. So it seems to me that building infrastructure, which includes public art, is exactly the right thing to do in an economic downturn.
On the Southwest BRT, one of the councillors who signed a notice of motion is not here right now. It's someone who sat through 7 years of meetings. Is that unusual?
It's not unusual, it's not unheard of for a councillor not to be at council. Certainly we have an outstanding attendance record. I'd be surprised if there's any councillor who over the last 7 years has not been present for more than 85 or 90% of all votes. But it does happen from time to time if you've got a family thing or you've got some reason you can't be here or you're away on council business. This particular item really needs to be dealt with quickly because of the fact that it is attempting to pause a process that is already well underway, and you can't drag your heels for too long. So I'm happy it's before us today.
Do you know where the...
I do not.
A bit of a sidebar question. There have been
Yes.
suggestions by Winnipeg and Edmonton mayors to change the name of the Edmonton Eskimos. What are your thoughts on that?
It's very common that I don't have thoughts on things. You know, I think that this is a good community discussion that is being held by the people of Edmonton. I really would refer people to the thoughts of the Inuit Tapayaliat. I don't know how to pronounce that word, so let me try that again. I refer people to the thoughts of Nathan Obed and the Inuit governing body on this. And, you know, I, as always, like good community conversations, and I hope that when Edmonton will have a good conversation about it.
So we're getting a BRT?
We're getting several BRTs, including a Southwest BRT and a South Crosstown BRT, which will also use the lanes on 14th Street, vastly improving transit to Rocky View Hospital, to Mount Royal University, and giving people in Southwest Calgary a great connection through to downtown without having to get on the overcrowded Red Line. So it's also great for people who take the C train from the south as well, because they'll have fewer people on the train.
So Mr. Farkas says this shows great disrespect to the people of 2 Southwest wards.
You mean the ones who voted for me in 3 elections? As I've been talking about the importance of this project, yes.
You seemed really keen to have this debate again.
I did seem really keen to have this debate because I was really keen. There are any number of procedural ways that we could have shut down the debate, but I thought that wasn't fair. We have to be open and transparent and fair to all councillors, because to be fair, Councillor Farkas campaigned hard on this issue and he deserved his moment in front of council to have the debate. And I'm pleased that council agreed with me in my interpretation of the procedure bylaw that we could have that debate today.
Can you just explain, so we have it on the record, why the 10 votes were needed? Because there's a lot of rumors perhaps circulating about
Yeah,
that?
as it turns out, he had nowhere near that number of votes anyway, so it really wasn't that relevant. But we have to abide by the rules. So council operates under a system where you can't constantly be relitigating council decisions. So if there is already a contract signed, or if it's impossible to reverse, council cannot then reverse it. So this is different than other orders of government. You know, remember the Airbus situation in the federal government where reversing the contract cost taxpayers billions of dollars. So council, once the contract is signed, cannot then reverse the decision. However, if you're in a situation where council has made a decision, but it's not impossible to reverse and no contract has yet been signed, you can have the debate, but it does require a 2/3 majority to reconsider council's previous decision. The only thing that's new about this is that used to expire after 6 months, and it no longer has an expiry date because it was getting hard to figure out when the 6 months started and ended. And council very openly, when we were talking about the procedure bylaw, had a long conversation about whether they wanted to remove that 6 months, and they did. So in the end, because this pause was changing council's very detailed direction from July 2016, I considered it a reconsideration. Councillor Farkas did not actually argue that. He did ask that we suspend the rule on reconsideration, which failed mightily around the council table, because council really does take these rules seriously. And so that is why this required 10 votes. In the end, he was nowhere close to 8 either.
We heard a few times about the risks to the city with a reconsideration on this subject. What are the risks?
There are, and this is always to the chair of the committee or the chair of council, in this case me, to determine in conjunction with administration whether the risks outweigh the benefits. So in this case, pausing this tender ran the risk of higher costs if it had to be retendered in the future. It ran the risk of reputational risk of saying, well, we went out to the community, people actually spent a lot of time and money on responding to this tender, and then we may have to cancel it. So that was another issue. There was a question as to whether there were already any contracts signed for portions of this work that would then have to be reversed. So these are all the things we think about as we make these decisions.
Were there risks of litigation as well?
I mean, that's a question for the law department, but I wouldn't think so.
You said in council chambers that this notice of motion was offensive to you. Why was it? Why did it offend you?
Well, because nothing has changed. There's nothing new here. Council has spent hundreds of hours on this project. Sometimes small projects get a life of their own. The Southeast 17 Transitway is multiple times larger than this project, and we barely talked about it at all. And we have spent so much time on this, 2 record-breaking all-night council meetings or committee meetings talking about this. So council has heard all these arguments, and council did what council does, which is we made a tough decision. We weighed the people in favor and the people against. We analyzed every corner and nook and cranny of the budget to make sure it was okay. We actually passed an uncommonly detailed recommendation saying you can do this, but you have to stay in your lane on all of these things. And administration has worked hard to do that. And so this reminds me of the conversation during the election where a candidate was saying, well, we can't do the green line because we haven't asked basic questions like, where does it go? Come on. Of course we've asked all these questions. Of course we've had this work done. And of course we've analyzed this to the nth degree. And so for someone to come up and make it look like council just went into this blindly, didn't actually look at all these things, didn't actually make this decision based on any facts, that demeans people's faith in how the process works. And I really wanted to say that both council and city administration have worked their buns off on this, responding to all of the things we've heard already. And there is absolutely nothing new in what was being done today except some new faces around the table. In fact, you will have noticed that more than one member of council changed their vote. They had voted prior to not approve this project, and today they voted to continue it.
Is there anything else that can cause this project to go into the ditch?
Literally or figuratively? There are a number of, as I said, relatively uncommon restrictions on administration on this project, the most important of which is they cannot go over budget. And so as long as administration can get its tenders in under that budgeted amount that council required, then I imagine construction will start as soon as ATCO has done their work on 14th Street, which is what council had directed.
Or time frame, I guess, because we heard today there's the money from the province has to be spent by the end of December 2019. That's pretty much.
Oh, we'll be okay on that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks very much.